Now, I know you know what I mean when you fall into these distractions like that, and one right after another keeps happening, and when you let one slide, it gets easier and easier, and then before you know it, you've wasted all this time and you've got nothing done. Well, the reason why I even bring this up, this topic of getting distracted, is because I had this dream a few days ago, and it actually stems from distractions. So I'll tell you about this dream, but first I'm going to give you a little bit of background on what has happened and why I even got to that point. So about a month ago, we moved from an apartment into a home, and when you change your environment up like that, you move or experience this major life change or whatever, it disrupts your daily routine, and it takes a little bit of time to get back into the swing of things. For me, it's the sheer amount of distractions that actually comes with the moving process that can knock me out of flow. And what I mean are things like changing your address, getting your utilities switched over or started, the ordering of appliances and getting those delivered, and also the amount of boxes that you have laying around the house that you have to unpack and set up so you have some sense of organization. So during this recalibration period, I did a lot of deep work on myself mentally, getting into the new routine and seeing what works for me in this new environment. When doing this deep work, I started by focusing on what am I doing on a day-to-day basis? Like I'm breaking down my day. So what does it look like? I'm talking about the things like my habits, my routine, my nutrition, my approach to different things, and how I utilize my time. But when I talk about utilizing my time, I'm not talking about the scheduling of things that I do, but more so the intent in which I bring to this thing that I'm doing. In other words, am I just going through the motions, or am I actually bringing intent and purpose to whatever it is that I'm trying to do? I started with these short-term, day-to-day things because it's really these that reveal the long-term path that you're on. It's these short-term, day-to-day activities, routines, habits, all that stuff that actually show you this is where you're going to be later on. This is where you're going to be in 3, 5, 10 years. So keeping a check on these things is going to take care of the long term. So when I start to assess these things of what I'm doing, or am I doing them to the best of my ability and things like that, I have to isolate. I'm talking no phone, no music, no distractions, no nothing, so I can just sit in a room, stare at the wall, and ask myself some tough and honest questions. It's the questions like, based on your day-to-day habits, are you actually doing the things that you need to do to get closer to your goal, to become the person you want to become? Are you slacking? Are you falling to mediocrity? Or are you actually in pursuit still to become the best version of yourself? Now, before I answered these questions, I had to remember that, life is this series of ups and downs, but when you go through a down period, it's up to you to decide enough is enough and I need to move forward. I've let distractions, bad habits, whatever it is, take over long enough, and I need to put my foot down and make a move towards actually becoming who I want to become. Now, of course, when you go through these major life changes like a move or maybe a career change or maybe a separation from your partner, you have to go through that period of recalibrating, going through the emotions involved. And the timeline is different for everyone. It's not one of those things that you can just tell someone, oh, within 90 days you'll be good to go. It's different for everyone. So allowing yourself to go through those things, you'll eventually know when it's time to move forward and you've spent time going through the emotions long enough. At this point, it's up to you to take the action to start to move forward. This is likely the toughest point in generating momentum again because you've basically stopped all momentum in your life. Now, every time when I've done this deep focus work on really my mental health in general, where I ask these tough questions and give honest answers, I've always experienced these things in day-to-day life that some people might feel are coincidental. Now, I don't believe this is coincidental at all, because when you start to put all your focus on one thing and solving this one problem that you're going through, you start to work through the resistance that may be holding you back. This resistance may be in the form of a belief that you have, or maybe it's that you're caught up in everyday life, so busy that you might not have the awareness to see what's going on around you. In other words, it can blind you sometimes. And putting this deep work in can actually open up your mind a little bit to seeing, man, I'm wasting a lot of time doing this, or this is holding me back. So I started to become a little more aware in not only what I say, but the way I say things. I started to regain that awareness of the self-image in my mind and make sure that correlates with who I actually want to become, and make sure that I am doing these things to become that person. And slowly but surely, these things that felt like a scrambled, unorganized puzzle started to finally piece themselves together. And now we arrive at this dream that I had. This dream happened a few days ago while I was meditating and visualizing on exactly who I want to become. As I was just letting my mind wander and going with whatever comes to it, I find myself walking down this dirt road. And on this dirt road, I end up at a four-way intersection. As I approached the intersection, there were three other men looking right at me. First, there was my former self, living a life that I wasn't necessarily enjoying, but kind of just surviving. A lost identity and a lost purpose. In short, he represented the model of settling. This guy chose comfort over challenges and started to put caps on his potential. He also let the feeling of past failures stop him from future successes. I knew this was my former self because I not only recognized him, but I recognized the way that he carried himself and the habits that he had, the cycles that I used to live in. Then, directly in front of me was my current self. It was a direct reflection of who I am now, and he represented this model of being incomplete. He's the man that still has holes in his game, still has goals he wants to accomplish, and skills he wants to build. This work in progress, incomplete version of myself represents a crucial time in life because you can be very vulnerable to complacency at this point. What I mean here is if you don't do the hard things, especially in the times that you don't feel like it, it can be very easy to fall into this mindset of complacency. You start to see short-term difficulties and give in to those temptations to want to quit rather than to see them through to help ensure that you have long-term success. It's these short-term challenges that actually serve as a foundation to your long-term development. It's during this time that you are literally rebuilding yourself. It's your perceptions, your beliefs, your habits, all while traveling this new and uncharted path. It's at this point where you can fall victim to letting distractions consume you and to trick you into thinking that it's okay because the road is too hard right now. It's too hard for a lot of people because it's lonely and you have to figure out a lot of things on your own. And that's when it dawned on me. This is who I'll become if I don't keep my foot on the gas and keep pressing forward. Then down the other road was my future self. It was someone that I didn't immediately recognize only because I hadn't become him yet. But when I saw him, I got this instant rush of inspiration. I wanted to develop the traits and the characteristics to become this person. The way he carried himself and the charisma he brought was just completely different than the other two guys at the intersection. He was a representation of taking chances with a long-term vision in mind. He wasn't distracted by short-term failures or even successes. He represented the complete version of myself that had actually reached his potential. I tell you this story because of the perspective that it gave me, in hopes that it will help you. At any given moment in life, we're a representation of one of these people. Maybe you're still the former self, and you know that you have to make these changes to become the best version of yourself, but you haven't really done anything to change it. Maybe you're in this transitionary phase, this work in progress but incomplete version where you've made a major change, but you know there's still work to do. You put the wheels in motion to become this person that you want to become, but you know that this is a very crucial time in your life because it is so easy to be vulnerable to falling back into your old ways. You're rebuilding yourself. Or maybe you've become this person that you always knew you could be. you've reached your potential and you're on this mission to help as many other people as possible become the best version of themselves. Either way, no matter where you fall, this dream showed me that complacency is a monster and it'll pull you down a path and hold on tight. It's a monster disguised as safety, ego, comfort, distractions, and excuses. This dream showed me that you can decide to choose any path that you want, but you can't go down two paths at once. When you go down one, you're committing. Even if you feel like you've taken the path that you've decided to become the absolute best version of yourself, but in the dark, you let yourself slide on some of these bad habits and you fall into your old ways. All you're doing is tricking yourself. You've just tricked yourself into believing something different. You tell yourself that you're trying to be the best version of yourself, but when things get hard, you shut down. And instead of taking the time to actually ask yourself tough questions and give yourself honest answers, you wake up weeks, months, years down the road just to see that you're in the same exact spot. You've just been tricking yourself into believing that you are taking the path to become the best version of yourself, but you never made the moves to do that. It's never too late, and you always have a choice. Sometimes it takes slowing down, removing all distractions, and staring at a wall to have the answers to these tough questions. But when the mind is silent and you have nothing to rob you of your attention, you somehow find the answers to the toughest questions that you ask. When you start to doubt yourself, remember this: be uncomfortable for a few years now to live the life that you've always wanted to live in the future.